Welcome to another episode of Marketing Matters. Today we'll be discussing the Super Bowl ads and how that relates to direct farm marketing. Join us soon.
Welcome to another edition of Marketing Matters. Today we're going to talk about marketing lessons that we learned from the 2021 Super Bowl ads. I'm Rob Leeds, Extension Educator in Delaware County, and with me is Eric Barrett, Extension Educator up in Mahoning County. First of all, what we want to do is kind of go over what we kind of learned from the Super Bowl ads. They're a nice lead in to our 2021 marketing year. What did we learn? What did we see? And how we can relate that to our farm.
You can find our handouts for today's program at go.osu.edu/superfarmmarketing. Even if you missed some of the commercials or didn't watch the Super Bowl with its super low ratings this year, you can go to YouTube and watch the commercials we're talking about today. You can also go and search a summary of all the Super Bowl commercials for 2021, and that will help you gain more information or more understanding of what's in today's program.
As far as overall observations, what we're going to look at is top 8 down, and we'll explain them more as we get to them. First of all, always need to be engaged. Every commercial, a lot of things look in nostalgia, but all of them kept you engaged in some fashion. A lot of them reflected on the past year, and we can all agree that 2020 was a very unique year, and they used that to their advantage in a lot of this advertising. Diversity was evident in nearly every commercial, really breaking those stereotypes. Emotion was evident. We see that a lot, and we were seeing it even more than 2020 because 2020 was a real a year that really had a lot of emotion tied to it. We looked at, saw a lot of commercials that looked at strong relationships within your community. We saw commercials focus on really changing the world and uplifting. We saw some people that really enjoyed the virtual world, and they were reaching out to that demographics. How can we look at those? We'll look at that again. Even the ones that focused on just entertaining us brought us some familiar faces. Some people that may not be real nostalgic driven, but people that we're familiar with to connect us with what we used to think of as normal back in 2019. So
we would like you to consider these questions when it comes to your farm. We're going to talk about the overall trends, how it relates to your specific business and brand. So keep that at the top of your mind as we say different words or make an example. How does this relate to my farm? Second, how can you use the trends to update your online presence? So we don't have the budgets as farms that these big companies do. But what we're really looking at is they have the data. They understand these trends and how quickly they're changing. So looking at their trends, the advertising they're doing helps us to say, are we in tune with what the messages of today are? So social media is a big part of what you'll be able to do there without a big expense. And third, what trends can you take advantage of and how can you make a plan to use them? And we'll give you some tips. Each option we're looking at or each trend will give you farm marketing ideas specifically for your farm. So just a note here, some commercials were not necessarily successful. We'll talk about Oatly. Some are a little controversial when it comes to the farming community. We're not really addressing those issues. We're merely talking about what the trend itself is. We're not agreeing with any messages of any companies. We're not promoting any companies. We're trying to just use their examples as what these trends are and what they were really trying to accomplish with those marketing advertisements for 2021.
First of all, because of a lot of things that happened this last year with the movement of social justice and diversity causes that's really catching on, we saw a lot of companies that looked to this diversity and trying to connect to it. Thought there was a lot of really good commercials that really broke those stereotypes. Amazon Alexa has gotten a lot of pub because they really smashed all stereotypes. We came
Yes.
in with African American actors and really turned the Super Bowl ads on their head, because it's always the guy chasing, seeing beautiful women, and this was the opportunity for the women to make the husband jealous, and he was definitely feeling the pain as she was connecting to the actor who was the new Alexa as they came out. Dr. Squatch, another soap company, a first-time advertiser. Once again, a lot of the traditional stuff we expected to see, out in the woods, manly man, soap. But then at the end, he talks about, to be a real man, you got to let your daughter braid your hair. To be a real man, you got to smell nice. Some of the things that we weren't expecting or we wouldn't have expected to see in prior Super Bowl years. Once again, reflecting that diversity too. And then the E-Trade one was really a young boy being inspired by a young lady as a great athlete. Once again, looking at different things that we can take away for that, and a little bit of that diversity and making us think a little bit different way. All of really connecting into a lot of what we saw this year and connecting into a generation that's looking for those connections. But once again, things to think about as far as a farm idea. All these factors play into all aspects of diversity in this coming year. How do we address diversity, equity, inclusion at the farm level? I know that one way we can do it is to address some of the hiring needs that we come into. Do we try to make sure that we get some people that speak several different languages or different based on our clientele? What about our advertisements? What does our social media posts look like? Are they diverse in our clientele? Are we reaching out to that community to bring them in? I know at our farm we have a fairly diverse type clientele. How do we make them feel welcome and bring them in? Do we do it in hiring? Do we do it in our media posts? A lot of that goes back, Eric, to we've talked about over the years, is this idea of Google Alerts. Make sure you know what your brand looks like online. You may think you're doing a good job, but bring that in so you can look at each individual ad, because this diversity and reaching out to your diverse clientele, especially with the baby boomers moving out and Gen Z and Gen Y moving up into our target audience, that's going to become more critical as we move on. You can see it in the big advertising that was done in the Super Bowl.
So we think that you need to take time. Each farm needs to take time right now, sit down with the farm management team, with the family, and talk about how we're addressing diversity in all of our farming operations, whether it's who we're hiring, how we're doing that hiring process, how we're reaching out to some diverse individuals when it comes to trying to recruit new employees, and how we're showing the farm on social media and in our advertisements. So take some time now to look at these farm ideas and make a plan for the coming year. Next is Rob's favorite word, relationships. The world does run on relationships. So relationships and community and how those connections made. I think each of us have a new understanding or a broader understanding of relationships in our households and how we're connecting to our community. So Rob?
Once again, all these commercials really hit on those ideas, relationships. Bass Pro Shops, and it was also Cabela's advertisement. You talked about connecting back to nature, this idea of communing with it and bringing the family along and the kids. Once again, that's something that a lot of us like to do anyway, but it just really came through really strong. Now, DoorDash and Uber Eats really looked at this idea of local foods. DoorDash and Uber are both local foods, but DoorDash took it a step farther. They talked about not only restaurants, but other small businesses that they could help to deliver. And they really DoorDash really tapped into that nostalgia feel. They had the Sesame Street characters. They had the singing going on down the street, and they had the actor from Hamilton as their key personality in that. Once again, that really connected to the community, to their local and their family in that local community. I thought WeatherTech did a nice job too of really bringing up that point of family. They didn't really connect it their customers to their organization through a community. They were looking at their workers. The people that work there are a family. So they wanted that to resonate with their customers. But once again, that goes back to an old adage that me and Eric talked about quite a bit, is that your employees are going to treat your customers just as you treat them. So you need to take the time to make your employees feel welcome, and then they'll transfer that to their customers. And WeatherTech did a really nice job of connecting that idea. When you work with us, we are family here. And that, resonates with their, hoping that, I'm sure they're hoping that resonates with their customers, and then that brings in better employees and better customer relations. So when you think about farm ideas, think about, what are new partnerships that you can make with your local businesses? How can you really support your local community? Eric and I have both said for several years, this idea of being local is not about your location as much as it is how do you support and how are you involved with your local community? Because once again, they can go another mile down the road and still define local as that location just fairly easily. So the idea is making sure you can support your local community. How do you give back? What are you giving back to them? Are you offering some local events for them, helping with a fundraiser? Whatever you're doing with that, you need to support that local community. And how are you engaging with those community partners? Can you engage with other businesses, much like Uber or DoorDash did, and say, we can expand. We can help you market, you help us market, and a lot of these community type atmospheres, and you're making the whole community better. I know one of the keys at our farm is we want to make the community better because we're a part of it. Once again, that really came through in a lot of these ads that we were seeing there. And then once again, the idea of how can you support other businesses in your local community, because a strong community will help us all when we're looking out there. What did you see, Eric?
So in addition to the community stuff we're focusing on here, I'm going to go back to what Rob started with, relationships and how you treat employees and how that's going to resonate. There should be a big part of your marketing plan is maybe this year really focus on, well, let's improve our relationship with our employees. And that's going to relate more in a marketing sense to our customers. So in addition to community, what is the personal relationship that you have with those customers, and doing better at staff training, employee training will help you improve in that area. That's going to make a great connection for the longer term.
Right. And who's going to see most of your employees, right? It's going to be your customers. It's going to be your employees. So those guys are happy, and they will just send that vibe right on to their customers.
The next couple companies for number 3, staying at home and being happy with yourself. So we are all forced, or many of us were, to stay home more. Some of us a lot, and then being happy with yourself and those relationships that you have in that arena. So, Rob?
Yeah, you look at the number of home projects that went on in 2020. I tell you, the home improvement store, Scott's, was a big winner in that, and they played it out in the Super Bowl too. So you look at Scott's Miracle-Gro, they really did a nice job of bringing that backyard improvement to their commercials. They had Martha Stewart, they had John Travolta, Carl Weathers. They had a lot of people coming in. Maybe the commercial got a little busy because you had so many celebrities, but once again, they really drew that connection to what a lot of us were feeling is, our home was our whole life. We were working from home. We vacationed at home. We did everything from a home, and they really kind of centered in on that and really tapped into that feeling. The second one, Doritos and Cheetos. Let's start off with Cheetos, Eric. I thought that was kind of funny too.
Yeah, a great connection between husband and wife, and she's hiding that she's eating Cheetos, and even though he has evidence, right, he believes her. So it gets to that whole root of what have we really been feeling and what have we been hiding from other people during the year, our little things that maybe we have more alone time when we're not with our family 24/7. That was a great connection.
Yeah,
and Doritos?
Yeah, and I tell you, Eric, too, that gives that whole idea of trying to work with your spouse. They're working, you're working, sharing the internet. You got poor signal anyway, and the battle's on. So I thought that really made a connection, really connected with the viewers of what we were all feeling in there. Doritos, once again centered on that same thing, but Matthew McConaughey was just not feeling himself. A lot of us went through that. We were just not feeling ourselves. He came out as this facsimile, just a base paper thin, until he eats the Doritos. Then he's starting to feel like himself. But once again, tapping into that idea of all 2020, it just wasn't right. It just didn't feel right to us. So what happened was, they tapped into that as we went through. So once again, Eric, you want to take this? What does that mean to our farming ideas as we move forward?
So getting back to our human ideals of how are we feeling right now, and getting folks to think about some normalcy when it's like this, because we've had so many maybe challenges at home, one way or another, usually not terrible or anything, but it's those things of things are driving me crazy. Thinking back to that, farms are part of the fabric of the nation. So it's getting to some normalcy. Our farms remind consumers about their roots, memories, traditions, being connected in a good way to friends and family. So thinking about how we can turn these kind of things around to making connections. How do we welcome people back and make customers feel normal again? Because we've had a lot of changes to our farms as well, whether it's the difference in ticketing or not offering school tours or touchless. Pick your own, all those kind of things. Can you focus on the traditions with all those necessary changes in place? So even though we've made a lot of changes to the fabric of a basic farm, how do we get customers to feel comfortable with that and feel a little bit of nostalgia when it comes to that area? Rob, anything else there?
No, I mean, I think that's the key too, is just this idea of how can we feel comfortable in our own place at our own time, because it really forced us to do into that, and we found some good, we found some bad. How can we pass that on to our customers?
Great. Then on to that in a different way, in a deeper level, is human connection. A lot of us lost human connection in many ways to those outside of our own family unit. So Rob, here we go on some cool commercials.
Okay, and I tell you, the Anheuser-Busch commercial was my favorite. I'm just going to say it right now. I thought they did the best job of really resonating with what I was feeling. For me, I must have been the target audience in that, because I really liked that. So what they did it, and that's the key, guys, is when you look at these, a lot of these are going to resonate with different people different ways, and that's great. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to hit their target audience. But the Anheuser-Busch one was the idea of when they ask you about having a beer, will you have a beer with me? And the whole message was, it's not about the beer. It's about the idea that we need each other. I want to be with you. I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. And I thought that resonated very nicely. Tapped into that nostalgia, what it's like to go out and just have a beer and talk to somebody. But the idea is not, they were even saying it's not about our product. It's about the connection that our product brings. And it wasn't, the wild party that we used to see in the Super Bowls, right? It was about that human connection that they were stressing in that. The next one we have up there is the Bud Light commercial. It wasn't just for Bud Light; it was the Bud Light Seltzer, if you remember that. And they really tapped into this whole idea that we all didn't like 2020, didn't you? They had lemons flying all over, boom, 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 boom. And I thought the best depiction of that was when they had the cardboard cutout sitting at the game. We all saw that at Ohio Stadium. Great way to raise funds, but we weren't there, right? That was just reminding us we were not there. So they had the lemons smashing through the cardboard cutouts. But the idea was, once again, that was a shared experience for all of us. 2020 was much different. When the pandemic started, we all said, it'll be over soon, and it went all the way through. That's what they were.
Just a few weeks.
Yeah, just a few weeks. They talked about the Jeep commercial, once again, connecting, meeting in the middle. These idea that 2020 has been very stressful in a lot of people. How do we meet in the middle with that? And did a nice job with the Bruce Springsteen commercial there. They've had some issues later on with it, but that was pretty effective as far as what they were trying to do. Now, the M&M's one was another one of my favorites. I thought they did a really nice job. And
Karen.
yeah, yeah. Basically, what they were doing was, saying they're sorry, being able to say you're sorry. And I don't know that the individual what they were sorry for, and they handed them M&M, connecting the product to the idea that I'm connecting with you, was as important. But the idea was just being able to say you're sorry. They went everywhere from the idea that um, uh, as Eric said about being Karen. Sorry, I called you Karen, and we all knew that that was a stereotype people were putting out there. But and then she answered another one because her name is really Karen. So they're making things funny. Sorry, I kicked your seat. There's a lot of different things. Then at the end, the guy's sorry for eating his friends, which are M&Ms, but he's really not sorry. So it's kind of funny. So anyway, farm ideas, Eric. What do you got?
So focus on treating people as individuals. We really saw and talked to a lot of farm direct marketers that had to look at individuals, even though we did things as time ticketing, even though we separated people for our pick your own and for our greenhouses in the past year. We all had those calls of somebody that says, I don't want to be around people. I'm really worried about my safety, or I have a condition, whether it's somebody that's a cancer patient or a child that has an immune disorder. We want to do something individual. I've seen everyone from zoos to any kind of entertainment venue you can think of going to this, treating everyone as a VIP, very individual person. So some of that is things like considering making time ticketing a permanent thing on the farm, but then to the other extreme of the personal experience. It's going to be more expensive, but their safety, the safety of that kind of event makes them feel like you're really treating them as a very individual person. So at the zoo, for example, you could get on a golf cart for $125 and ride around and see the lights and never encounter anybody at the zoo. A lot of our farms, it was like I said, a cancer patient or someone else that we want to come when nobody else is there. So, well, for this price, you can come and experience our farm, or come and do pick your own when we're not open, and you can have the farm to yourself for that 30 minutes or that hour or whatever it is, or it's a very smaller group. So what can you do more to make those intimate individual experiences for those that are most concerned? Anything you can do to make it matter for those folks, and reduce crowds, that makes a huge difference. A lot of us really learned with time ticketing that we saved money on labor when it comes to agritourism, but also that people had a better time. They mentioned, thanks for thinking of us and thanks for making it a safe environment here at your farm. Rob, other aspects?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people just want to come out and have a good time, and I think that's what we'll see this year. There's a lot of things going on around us. I had one of my employees tell a story about he went to a concert, and two people were arguing about masks and not masks, and he said, "I just wanted my chicken fingers. I just want my chicken fingers," and that's true. People just want to have a good time. So how do we have that individual not have to deal with the polarization and feel like that individual person? Okay, Eric, we've got 5 minutes to go. We'll jump into the next one. What do you got?
So 2 more. This one is change the world. The companies that really wanted to talk about how can we change the world. So Rob?
Yeah. Chipotle, we're used to that kind of thing. They're talking about sustainable fresh. The idea, can one burrito change the world? Oatly talked about wow, no cows. That's been a very interesting debate about that. Trending really negative on Twitter, but the idea was they were trying to change the perception of milk. Logitech, once again, looking at this idea of breaking stereotypes. Huggies was bringing new babies, cute little kids, into the world. That was looked at too. And then, we had Toyota. I thought it was a very powerful commercial. I don't know how it connected to the product or anything. I haven't seen the data, but the idea was, it was about the female swimmer, and she had to amputate her legs, and they were telling about when they were adopting, it was going to be an uphill battle. And they said, yes, but it's going to be a wonderful life. So, the whole idea of changing things or being part of that change really played out during those commercials.
So the farm ideas here when it comes to this trend is changing the world. Break those stereotypes. What does a farm look like? How can you portray a farm in a positive way? Your farm specifically. What are some stereotypes that need upended? One of our friends, Bill Backen, that does a lot of marketing and a lot of out of the box thinking. He's been seen wearing a pair of Carhartts, and then he breaks that stereotype by taking those Carhartts off, and he's got a suit on underneath. What are those kind of stereotypes that you can change about your farm? What about your farm story is really compelling? What can you say that this is what we're doing for our community? This is what we're doing for the future of the farm, for the next generation, all those kind of things. Are you remarkable in a positive way? How can you really stick out? And then what's your image on social media? A lot of us have been around for a long time. Are we portraying not just the history, but what's modern about us? So how are we changing the world? How is our farm changing? And what are those things that can get more new customers to come? Because we're really going to have to think about some of our older customers are going by the wayside. They're not shopping as much, or they're dying just because the generations change. How can your farm get those new customers, those new 20-year-olds, those new 20, 30-year-olds, and will they shop and purchase your products or tickets?
The next one we have is the idea that some of the people are actually embracing the virtual world. So how do we, reach that audience? Samuel L. Jackson's talking about don't blame the lag. It's about your internet service being bad. Yes, you can't blame it for being a poor game. TurboTax and Vroom both looked at the idea of shopping virtually. I mean, Vroom went so far as to show, buying a car at a car dealership is torture. So, they're embracing the Vroom. So when we look at our farms, how can we embrace that generation coming up? Eric?
So many of the changes due to the pandemic are not going away. So we really have to think about that virtual world. How are we positioned in that virtual world? How are we allowing people to shop online for our farm or do a pickup in some way? What are the virtual engagement that they're really doing? Is the farm really up to speed when it comes to virtual reality in one way or another? We want to make sure that we're looking modern and that we're using as many, while not leaving some customers behind. We're getting engaged online and using as many of those products and potential technologies that will help our farm move forward.
Okay.
And finally,
some are just entertaining. Don't be afraid to be engaging. And here's a list of those. You can look those up. We're down to 10 seconds. So go ahead, Eric, farm ideas.
So looking at the marketing mix, don't be afraid to stay with tried and true methods of marketing, and make sure you continue to connect with your long-term customers. Make sure you look at our website at directmarketing.osu.edu for more information.